Greetings, colleagues. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some research on the 1980s standards movement and how that has impacted curriculum decisions for students in low-incidence programming. Before considering how that standards movement impacted curriculum decisions we might make for our students in low-incidence programming, I really want to look at some educational philosophies that also impacted that movement. Essentialism was one of those. You have E.D. Hirsch, who is very interested in cultural literacy and students having skills to be college and career ready. In contrast to that, you have John Dewey in the past, who was a pragmatic and was interested more in student-centered learning. He wanted students to have skills, but they were more life skills to prepare them to contribute specifically to society. For our students in low-incidence programming, this may be a difference between an essentialist mode, where we're exposing them more to regular standards so that they're as prepared as possible to be college and career ready, or a John Dewey approach that's pragmatic, where students are really working on those skills specific to what they need and to function within life. Due to that 1980s standards movement, the United States eventually adopted Common Core standards throughout the nation. Those Common Core standards focus more on students being college and career ready. Talbot et al. Did do a research study specific to curriculum used within low-incidence programming to see how that aligned with those Common Core state standards and also how it aligned within itself. So did the lesson objectives align to the activities within the lesson? They found positively that those lessons provided prepackaged materials that teachers did not necessarily have to create on their own. They were all available. They had good visual supports, and they did find that the lessons all specifically were aligned, supposed to be aligned with a specific Common Core standard or more than one. However, they did also find, once they evaluated through the lessons, that the lesson itself, the lesson objective mark, was not necessarily aligned with the activity that was given, and they did find that the Common Core standards that were associated with each lesson were not necessarily well aligned with the activity within the lesson. So based on the research, I was very interested in how well the Unique Learning Systems elementary grade bands 3 through 5 align with the best standards that we currently use in Florida. This is a quick snapshot of the progression that we have gone through since 1996. We started out with Sunshine State Standards and went to Next Gen Standards. We were Common Core 2013 to 2019, 2020. Before then, we adopted Best Benchmarks starting in 2020. Along the way, we've also had access points, which are basically for students with significant cognitive disabilities that also often happens within low incidence programs and needs to be considered when you're viewing alignment between lessons and activities. So this is a snapshot from a teacher lesson plan with the objectives for one specific activity for a grade band 3 through 5 Unique Learning Systems activity. The instructional targets for this specific activity are for the students to find key details in text and ask and answer questions. So I'm going to look at how well that objective aligns to the activities within the lesson, as well as some of the alignment for the benchmark standards for regular standards, as well as access points for this specific lesson. For the specific activity identified, the best benchmarks that are linked to it associate with identifying themes in literature and using it to summarize and enhance understanding of text. There's also one in 5th grade that wants them to explain as well as identify the themes within that text. So this is a sample of the associated activity for that lesson. It is specifically an answering question activity. It provides visual supports for students. It's not necessarily having the student identify themes within literature, but it is definitely having them comprehend things that are going on within that text. So finally, considering alignment, the lesson objective and the activity and content itself did align fairly well. Students were asked to answer questions related to a text that was either read to them or that hopefully they read themselves. They did that with visual supports. They did not ask any questions, and there were no implicit questions involved in this specific activity, which was part of the lesson objective that was listed within the prepackaged activity that was provided. As far as the benchmark that was associated within the activity, The benchmark required students to identify literary themes in text, and they asked them to use that to summarize information, to enhance their comprehension, and at times to even explain that content and the literary themes within that text. That was not necessarily done for this activity, and it's kind of a far reach. So the final takeaway for this is for teachers to be aware that even though that content is prepackaged and it's available and has standards listed, always consider, does the content align to the lesson itself? Does it align to the benchmark that's listed? And just ensure that students that we are working with are getting the best opportunity to master those standards based on the lesson content that we're providing. These are the references for the content within this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for your time.